So my question for us today is, what keeps us alive? I used to hear this question, and I would think about guardrails, seatbelts, medicine. But 5 years ago, the answers to this question changed, because 5 years ago, a dear friend of mine took his life. And the day that he took his life, my life changed forever. And since that day, we've also heard of other suicides, from Robin Williams to the tragic shooting at Bend High. And about 6 weeks ago, I was at my kid's school, and I was getting there ready to pick him up, and a friend started walking towards me. And as she started walking towards me, I knew something wasn't right in her. I could just tell. And as she approached me, she began to tell me the story about another child, and I say child because she was 14 years old, who committed suicide. And when she told me, my entire body filled with grief, as I'm imagining every single one in this room can imagine right now. But it wasn't until my friend told me her name that I wanted to pass out and throw up, because I knew this amazing, amazing child and her absolutely wonderful and loving family. Suicide. 105 Americans commit suicide every single day. The second highest age of suicides is 10 to 24. And more teens and young adults commit suicide than have AIDS, cancer, influenza, stroke, birth defects, lung, and heart disease combined. But it's also right here in our backyard. Oregon is the second highest state of suicide, and Deschutes County is the third highest county. But, you know, as I was thinking about this, for some reason, the myth of Pandora's box came to me. Pandora's box is a Greek myth about Zeus, who created the first woman, Pandora, and he gave her a husband. But the thing was that Zeus was very mad at her husband. So he gave her a beautiful box and said, "Do not open. Do not open." Well, curiosity got the best of her, and she opened it. And as she opened it, out came grief, plagues, disease, death. But the last thing that came out was hope. And that's what I want to talk about today, is hope. And how do we stay alive? I'm not standing up here today to be an expert on suicide or suicide prevention. In fact, if I learned anything from the death of my friend, is that we don't always know the answer. We all want to know why. And sometimes we don't know why. But I am standing up here today because I have a deep passion for keeping people alive. And I know every single one of you in this room, if you could, you would help someone. For 20 years, as an educator and a therapist, I've tried to help families and children live healthier lives. And so it's this that I want us to start thinking about certain questions for our community. What can we do to bring joy and sorrow and let our children embrace both of these? How can we allow this topic to not affect us as deeply for our communities, our families, and ourselves? And how do we bring suicide out of the shame and shadows into the healing and the light? And ultimately, what keeps us alive? What keeps us going? What wakes us up every morning and allows us to keep walking on this planet? And I believe it comes down to two things. It's a big question. But I think the first thing it comes down to is connection. Connection is absolutely an external experience, but that is felt so on the heart, internal. And here's the reality about connection. Connection cannot be fully felt and embraced and until we honor both our dark and our light, our dark emotions, our sadness, our grief, our loss, as well as our joy, our light, and our love. Carl Jung, who's one of my teachers, Swiss psychiatrist and psychotherapist, said it so beautifully: until we embrace our dark and our light, we cannot be whole. And I see this all the time weekly in my clinician's room as a therapist. It is a place where the door is open for the darkness, where people can come in and they know initially, literally sit down, it's like, it's where their sorrows are accepted and their tragedies and their darkness with love and compassion. And I do my best to do these things to not fix, to not shush or dismiss. Because as an American culture, we're really uncomfortable with these topics. It's not always easy to talk about. But in that space, I think there is healing like Pandora's box. When the darkness comes out, then there is light, then there is hope. They can walk out of the room a little bit lighter. And for that, that is really important. I not only know this professionally, but I know it personally. After I had both my children, I struggled with postpartum depression. Now, before I had kids, I had had dark days, I had felt sadness, I had just, didn't always had the blues. Depression's a different beast. Depression is different. It's a weight that is something that you don't feel like you can lift off. And I am telling you, by embracing my darkness and having the mantra, this too shall pass, knowing that it's not going to be with me forever, and surrendering it and letting the darkness be my teacher, I was able to survive. I was also able to survive because I knew that I was not alone. Every single one of us in the room, I can feel it right now, has dealt with different darkness. And yet we feel so separate. We feel so alone when we're in it. It's very painful. But I knew those, thank God for those mom groups. I went to those mom groups and I talked about it, and I did not have to be in shame that I am an awful mother because I was feeling so dark and sad around the birth of these children. And that's what it comes down to too, is not only the connection to our darkness, but the connection to each other as a community, as people. We are neurobiologically supposed to be here and accept our dark and our light. There's my postpartum. And knowing that we are not alone. We are not alone. We are hardwired to connect to other people. There's a mystery in evolutionary science right now. And the mystery is, why is the human brain so big? Matthew Lieberman, a neuroscientist, wrote an amazing article called Connection to the Human Brain. And what they've discovered is every other animal species in the animal kingdom's brain is in proportion to their body. So as you see here, a whale's brain would be the size of a whale, elephant, and the human brain is so much larger than it should be. And what they've discovered is the only reason why our brains are so large is to connect, is social connection. It is just as important as safety, shelter, and food. Connection to each other. And what they're finding, also discovering in science, is that it's really, really dissolving. In the last 50 years in particular, we are having less intimate conversations, less dinner parties. We are having less town halls and community meetings and ritual, helping each other transition from one position in our life to the next. And I know what you know where I'm going here. Phones, laptops, iPads, texting, emails, the amount of time. I'm sure every one of us has walked into a coffee shop, and what do we see? I'm there too. We're caught up in this world. And what's happening is, it's where our world is going, but what's happening is the awareness around from this is that happiness and joy are diminishing, and depression and suicide is multiplying from this lack of social connection. And I know it's not easy. It takes courage. It takes a ton of courage to connect. And it's not the easiest thing to do. But I'm telling you, connection lives in the heart, and heart is the birthplace for compassion. I don't know, it's going to be a crowd pleaser. little bit, but it is. I want to tell a really quick story about this, because I've never felt such compassion in my life. I had the great fortune to meet His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and the first thing he asked me, he walked straight up to me, he held my hand, and he said, "How old was your father when he passed away?" And I had never felt such immense compassion in my life. In just a few words. Nothing else needed to be said. Nothing. And it was in that moment that I often think about his definition, the Dalai Lama's definition of compassion. And it's a wish for every being to be free of suffering. And that every being isn't just other beings. It's ourselves. It's self-compassion. And again, this is what I want to talk about, and what I'm really discovering is that I'm going to go on a limb here, but I actually think it's practically impossible to have compassion for other people until you have compassion for yourself. And this is really something as a culture we need to look at. Because it's really hard for us when we're having a bad day to embrace our sadness, our darkness, and our suicidal thoughts. Like, actually embrace it and know we're not so alone. But it is so important. And on a practical level, what does this look like? This looks like you get home from your day, work, being with your children, whatever you've done, and you're exhausted, but you have somewhere you need to go, a meeting, a party, somewhere social event. And you are so exhausted, but instead you know you are just as worthy of love and belonging if you stay home and take a bath and have a cup of tea. You are just as important. Or you don't beat yourself up for not attending every single one of your child's sporting events and field trips, right? You know, and that you know you're still an amazing parent. And that you do embrace your darkness with love, 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 and compassion. It's very, very important. And when we can do this for ourselves, we can do it for others. So why don't we do this? Why doesn't our culture, yes, some days we do this. We're able to do this for ourselves. But in general, it's really hard. We don't do this because of fear. We are so afraid that if we embody self-compassion, we're selfish, we're self-centered, we're weak, get over it, pull up your bootstraps. Therefore comes failure, a disappointment. But if we don't start doing this, we need to. It's imperative for compassion for other people. And I want to talk about this because I think this is really, really important. And I want to ask something of all of you as you leave here today. Yes, think about what you're going to hear today and from all these amazing women and people here. But I want you to think about the power of compassion for others. And what happens when you see someone struggling, in particular to their dark thoughts, to their dark days. I'm imagining if I asked every single one of you here right now to think of one person that you know right now is struggling. They may just have a bad day. They may have just found out something happened in their life. And this is what I ask of you. Hold their hand. Look into their eyes. Ask them, how are you doing? Even if they do, fine, I'm good, I'm great. They act awkward and run away, like, oh, I don't want to talk about that. That's not fun, I'm telling you, I see this in my office every week where people come in and say, oh my gosh, the store clerk asked me how my kids were doing. It made me feel so good. Someone saw me. They heard me. A friend actually sent me a text and said, how are you doing? I saw you last night at that dinner party. You didn't seem like yourself. It changes lives. It keeps them alive. It keeps them alive. It keeps us going. It really does when we can have compassion for others. It's a ripple effect. Then they can do it for the next person, the next person, the next person. We know this. Okay. Since, already had technical difficulties, I'm the first one on the stage. I'm going to ask us to do a little exercise. It might be a little bit of a stretch. But I think for us to totally embody compassion and connection, we need to do something. So I'm going to ask you all to close your eyes. And take 3 deep breaths, breathing in and out. The breath is why we are here, to connect your breath. And allow yourself to actually connect to your heart right now in a compassionate way and what you're going through. Maybe you heard something in this talk that brought up grief or sadness. And just allow yourself love and compassion in that moment. And then just see if you can have compassion for the person sitting next to you. Maybe something happened to them before they came in today. Maybe they need to leave here with something that they're not looking forward to. And notice your body, and that can you hold both dark and light in the same space and actually maybe feel peace, love. And then see if you can spread this compassion out into the world to all those struggling with oppression, poverty, slavery, or just really having a bad day. And as you're coming back into the room in your own time, I want us to be reminded of Rumi, the guest house, the poet, the Sufi poet, who speaks so profoundly about opening your house to every piece of your life, the darkness, the malice, the sadness, as if the same way you would meet a prince or a king, knowing that they are your guide to the beyond, that they are your teacher. And as I leave you today, I want to leave you with a story of hope. And it's about an amazing woman that I've had the fortune to know very well, who struggled with suicidal thoughts, taking her life. But it was through her courage to connect to her darkness and embrace it that she found light, and knowing that she's not alone, and her family and her friends and her medical professionals are there for her, and allowing herself to have compassion, deep compassion for herself and others. That is why she is alive today. And it's what is making her have an amazing life with both the dark and the light. So I ask you today to be your guide from beyond, and you walk out of here, and you allow yourself to connect to others and yourselves with both your dark and your light, with immense amount of self-compassion and compassion for others. Thank you.